Okay, so in today's setup guide, I'm going to be showing you how to set up the very awesome Yape emulator. This is a Commodore Plus 4 emulator and quite likely the very best emulator for Commodore Plus 4. So in this setup guide, I'm going to be showing you how to set up disk images, how to get them loaded, also looking at how to load up cassette images as well as .prg images. I'm going to be showing you a plenitude of different video settings and even controller settings. And on top of that, I'm going to be showing you 3 recent releases from the homebrew community. And trust me, some of these Commodore Plus 4 games are totally worth checking out in themselves. So anyways, this is Yape Emulator. Check this one out. Okay, before I start today's Commodore Plus 4 Yape Emulator setup guide, if you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content. Helps my channel a great deal, plus you get notifications every time I release a guide, such as this one you're watching today. So Commodore Plus 4 then released in 1984, 2 years after the Commodore 64, blessed the world. And did you know that the Plus 4 name refers to 4 applications which was built into the Plus 4 ROM. So we had the word processor, spreadsheet, database, and graphing. So strictly speaking then, the Plus 4 was no game system, more of a business system, which actually lasted a year, if that, before Commodore discontinued it. So anyway, a bit of history for you there. So what we're going to do is actually download the emulator from this website, and we're going to download Yape 1.2.4 zip, and this is going to be compatible with Windows 32 and 64-bit computers, and I'm running this on Windows 11 and it works just fine. Now once we downloaded the emulator, you're going to download a zip folder. What we need to do is just extract the contents somewhere. I'm going to extract these on my desktop, and I'm just going to call this folder Plus 4. And if I highlight all of those contents and just simply drag and drop into that Plus 4 folder, we now have got everything ready to go. So what we're going to do next is just delete that Yape zip folder. We don't need that one anymore. And now for today's setup guide, I'm going to be testing a couple of modern day games. So we got Turbo Outrun. I actually did a gameplay video when this one released earlier this year. What we can actually run on the Yape emulator is disk images, cassette images, and .prg images. So just download from Commodore Plus 4 World. You'll be able to get all your games from here, and in some cases you can even play these games online through their website. Totally recommend Turbo Outrun, and if you've not seen this yet, you won't believe this is running on the Plus 4 computer. Next one I'm going to go for is Pets Rescue. So again, this is going to be a disk image, and this one was actually released around 5 or 6 years ago, 2018. And another one I'm going to recommend and also show a bit of gameplay of is Adventures in Time. Cytronic released this, probably, 2010. So disk image again, but I'm also going to be showing you how to run tape files as well as .prgs, and also commands that you need to type in order to load up disk images. So let's open up yape.exe. This is an executable, and rather than just using this version, I'm going to go for the Win64 version as I'm running a 64-bit computer. Windows protected your PC, just go to more info, run anyway. Okay, so once we boot up Yape for the first time, this is how it's going to look. So we got the CRT effect as well as scan lines. If you don't like how this looks, just simply go to screen, and we can disable CRT emulation, and we can also take away double scan if that's checked. If you want double scan, just apply it, and of course if you want CRT emulation back, just check this as well. What I'm going to do for this setup guide is just take off CRT emulation and just keep on double scan. So first thing I'm going to show you is how to actually load disk images. So this is floppy disks, of course. So to do this, what we're going to do is go to File, and from File we can go to Attach Disk Image. And before I actually start loading this, I'm going to just make you aware that through Yape it's actually got 4 virtual disk drives attached. If we go to Settings just here, you'll find drive 8, drive 9, drive 10, drive 11. So if we go into drive 8 for example, we can actually choose a mode of emulation here. So by default, this is going to be using the 1541 disk drive. And this is by default and it works fine. Now if you want to mess around with the 1581 drives, then it's entirely up to you. At some point you might need them, but just as a standard basic setup guide, I'm going to keep this with 1541. Actually load up a disk then. So if we go to file, we're going to go to attach disk image, and this is going to take me into my games folder. So in my games folder I've got 4 disk images, and the one I'm going to load is Turbo Outrun. So if I double left click on this, so as we can see at the bottom here, this image has now been attached to drive 8, and here's my game, Turbo Outrun.d64. So what I need to do is type in some commands in order for the emulator to recognize it's actually been loaded up like you would with a real +4. So type in load, and then obviously 8 on the end, which represents drive 8, and then enter. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is actually list the contents of this disk. So what I'm going to do is very quickly press tab on my keyboard in order to stop it. So if I type in list, enter, tab. So the first thing we see here is Turbo Outrun, and this is what we need to load from the contents of the disk. So if I type in load, Turbo Outrun, and if you're new to Commodore emulation, especially 8-bit micro Commodore emulation, you need to type this out exactly how it's listed. So turbo space outrun. Then obviously we're going to put 8 at the end, which is going to be for drive 8. So press enter. Now, unlike Vice Emulator, which is a very cool emulator for Commodore 8-bit machines, we can actually emulate the sound of the disk drive mechanism, but I can't see a feature on Yape to actually do that. I could be wrong. So anyways, what I'm going to do now is just type in run. Now I'm using a Google Stadia controller for this, and what we need to do to actually input from a controller is just go to settings. Now just here you've got swap joystick port, and this is checked. We're going to leave that checked for now. If we just go to input setup, what we're going to do first is just go over to configure, and then make sure your controller is listed here. Then we can also go to advanced, and likely it's going to say none or default. If you drop down this preferred device, you'll likely see your controller there. So just make sure that's selected as well, and just OK that. Now everything should be good to go here. Now we can access port 1 and port 2. So obviously games on the Commodore Plus 4 are going to be different in the way they respond to controllers. Just like the C64, 98-99% games would be running from port 2 joysticks. I'm going to leave this as custom keys, and we can also turn this into a full screen just by simultaneously pushing down on Alt and Enter, and by pressing Alt and Enter to take me back into a window mode. So my controller is working fine. And I'm going to just show you how the game looks like in the CRT emulation mode too. And if I just put that back to normal mode, so when I released this as a gameplay video, when this released early 2024, I couldn't actually believe this was a +4 game, and people who commented on the video at the time were also amazed that a +4 could come out with this type of sound. It sounds much like a C64 is running this. So what we're going to do, in order to reset the emulator itself, we just go to machine. We got reset just here. We also got hard reset. So if you want to clear everything out and start from scratch, then just go to hard reset. But before we do that, if you have got a disk inserted like I have just here, if you just reset it, then the disk is going to be attached when it turns itself back on. So just make sure if you're using disk images, you eject the disk. So if I go to drive A to remove my game, and then back to machine, and I'm going to do a hard reset. Cool, so next up I'm going to show you how to load a cassette image, and these are known as T64 images. So what we're going to do to load a tape game is go to tape, we're going to go to attach tape, and this is going to take me into my games folder. So we've got formula1.tap just here. If I double left click it, all I'm going to do to load the tape in is type in load, and then press enter. And then it's going to say press play on tape. Of course, you don't have a data set or a tape recorder, so we can do this by going to tape, and then from here, just press on play. So say you're loading a cassette game, and some cassette games, it might ask you to rewind the cassette back to the start and then press play. Whatever, you got all your controls just here, including record control. We can also go back to machine and press full throttle. And we're going to go back to machine once the program's loaded up. Deselect full throttle. And obviously we still got the speed on 300%, so just put that back to 100%. And here we go, a very cool Formula 1 game. So anyway, that's how to load cassette images, and with this we don't have to remove the tape image like we would a disk image. So we're going to go to machine, and we're just going to do another hard reset. Next up we have got programs. So if we go to file, to load a program, we're just going to go to load PRG. And then in my games folder I have got these two games here, or rather just one, marked as .prg. If I double left click and run, so I've never played this game in my life, but very clearly it's a snooker game or some sort of pool game. You also noticed just then that I went to settings and I unchecked swap joystick port, and then I went back to select it again. So some games are a little bit annoying like that. Some games will expect you to press fire button and then swap to port 2 or vice versa. Very annoying stuff. Now let me also remind you, I've got settings open. Settings you make, in fact any settings you make, if you don't want to lose them, just go to save, and all your settings are going to be saved. So if you turn off Yape Emulator, when you turn it back on, those settings are going to be there. And if they're not there, then you can just go back to settings and then just go down to load settings. Next thing I'm going to show you, if we go to machine and just go down to configuration, just here under preset machine type, it's currently set to custom machine, but we can actually emulate Commodore 16, say the Commodore 232, the Commodore 264, obviously the Plus 4, and you know, there's lots there to play around with. So let's just go for Commodore 16. I'm going to press OK, and here we have it. Now obviously the Commodore Plus 4 computer has the built-in applications. So let's just show you how to do this. If we go back to machine configuration, and I'm going to select the Commodore Plus 4 and OK. Now in order to go into these applications, it's just literally a case of pressing F1 on your keyboard. Now if we go to settings and we go down to sound settings, if you're getting any issues with sound output, then just go to sound driver, and by default this is on direct sound. You might want to try Wave Mapper or X Audio 2. And we've also got a debugger option on here, so if we go up to screen, we can actually go down to quick debugger, and there you go. And obviously you can disable this by just clicking back on quick debugger. And if you find you're getting no video, any visuals at all whatsoever, then if we just go to screen, from here go down to video driver, and you can select different backends just there. For me it works with OpenGL. And if we go down to, we've also got small border. If you just check this, you'll notice that the screen has now lost the border. So I'm going to just show you a couple of more modern games out here. So first of all, what I'm going to do is show you how to actually auto-load your games or auto-start images. So we can actually load games in Yape rather than typing out commands like I've been doing. If we go to auto-start image, we can then literally auto-start image. So I'm going to use my Adventures in Time game. And that's loading in commands for me, cool. And of course, just like cassette images, we can go to machine if you get bored of waiting and just go down to full throttle. So that's Adventures in Time. First time literally I played that with the joystick version. That game is absolute hell to play with a keyboard, and literally that's the first time I've got to that part of the game. Yeah, using keyboard, it's not easy for that particular game. So the next one up I'm going to show you, and the final modern homebrew game I'm going to show you, is going to be Pets Rescue. And again, I'm using an auto load for this. And just remember to go into full screen, just Alt and Enter together. And that's it for today's Commodore Plus 4 Yape Emulator setup guide. So I've included some games in there, just in the chances that you've not actually come across the power of Commodore Plus 4 in, say, the last 12, 13 years. What coders are doing today with the Commodore Plus 4 is truly outstanding stuff. So anyways, if you liked today's video, hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content, including lots and lots of Commodore content. That's a fact. I'm a big Commodore fan. But anyways, join me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. But until next time, stay retro.